So Lower Decks is back for its third season, and man, I can't believe we're 3 seasons into this show. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and if you haven't worked it out already, I'm going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks Grounded. So if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. Now, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Lower Decks fares, as we're now in the well beyond the middle of the Star Trek year. We've had Strange New Worlds, Picard, Summer Prodigy, and now Lower Decks is back, so the sort of world or layout of Star Trek has changed quite a bit since the last season aired, and I think it's relatively safe to say that Lower Decks was probably the most popular new Trek show until Strange New Worlds. So I'm going to be interested in how this is going to sort of balance out against new live Star Trek and new animated Star Trek, because I love Star Trek Prodigy as well. So this episode, before I get into the spoilers, and the spoilers do start at this time frame, I have to say this was a pretty standard Lower Decks episode. The opener of Season 2 had a lot more energy and punch to it. It's still fun and it's nice to catch up with the crew, and you've probably seen it already from the trailers. It picks up sort of directly where the story leaves off at the end of Season 2. But beyond that, I just didn't think this episode was that exciting. I think I was prepared that some of the stories were going to be a bit more long term or a bit more arcing over the season, and some of it is pretty much resolved straight away in this episode. So anyway, as always, this is your last spoiler warning, so let's get to it. So we get a bit of an exposition dump at the start with the Federation News Network catching us up and reminding us what happened at the end of Season 2. The ship's on lockdown, the crew's on leave, and the captain's on trial, and Mariner isn't taking her mum's situation well, or even her own, because this is the longest that it seems that she's been on Earth in her life, certainly as an adult, and she's getting a little bit antsy, a little bit anxious. She's got to get out of the house, and yet I like where this started off. I like that we're getting to see her and her dad a little bit more, because he's sort of been a background character the last couple of seasons. So if you don't remember, her dad's an admiral, and with his wife on trial, he wants to trust in the Federation and the Starfleet system, but Mariner of course wants to do her own thing to help her mum out. Now, Boimler, you may have seen it from the intro, is doing his best Picard impression. Not grapes his family's invested in, it's raisins, so does that explain why his hair's like that? There is a mention later on in the episode when you hear his personal log that he does dye his hair, so is that an explanation? But yeah, Picard, he is not. But the one thing that he might have is the evidence to clear the captain up and set the record straight. So they've got to get the band back together to get the ship, go and get Tendi and Rutherford, and yeah, all this happens kinda quick. They're in Cisco's. I don't think it's in New Orleans, maybe Cisco's franchised out. And I thought that they were going to go with a whole really lean into the search for Spock and steal the ship vibe, and they kind of do a little bit. They realise they need a certain type of transporter to beam back onto the ship because it's secure. So they sort of go to the one that they think is going to be easiest, and it's reminiscent of that Uhura scene where she locks the young guy in the locker. But instead of an Uhura type waiting on them, it's Starfleet's favourite grandfather, and I say that literally because, my god, this guy's old, and I don't think that he'd rank on his uniform, so he's been there quite a while, and he's just basically riding out the rest of his life by the looks of it. But there is a little bit more to this guy than it seems. For a start, he's a transporter collector, or a buffer buff, and man, I know I went a little bit hard on that episode, but buffer buff is maybe one of the best jokes that Lower Decks has ever made. And it's a pity that we don't get to see more of this guy, because he does seem interesting in his own little world. But they learn from him that they can't transport to the ship because there's these life forms that are moving through the solar system at the moment in space, and it's disrupting all the transporter lock-ons. So they have to go and steal a ship, and where else are you going to go and get a warp ship than where it all began? Bozeman, Montana. And if you don't know where that is, it's where Zefram Cochrane launched his warp ship in 2073, 2063, whatever, but from Star Trek First Contact. So when they go to Bozeman, Montana, my god, the amount of Easter eggs that are here. When I do Lower Decks reviews, I always struggle if I should go through every Easter egg, but you know, I'm not really that type of channel. I mention the ones that I like, and beyond that I might go back and mention something later on. But you get the full Star Trek First Contact music, you get James Cromwell, who played Zefram Cochrane, doing some new dialogue, and I love that Bozeman is now like a theme park. And by that I mean, you know, there's the Vulcan ship sort of slide climbing frame for kids. The Zefram Cochrane launch is like a ride, but you know, the ship can actually go into warp, which is why they're stealing it. And it's really funny that when they do steal the ship, there's just a tourist on board that gets stuck with them that they can't get rid of. So I thought that was a really nice touch. So yeah, they're stuck with Gavin the botanist, and when they get to the Cerritos, he decides to take the Phoenix off for himself, and I thought, we're going to see that guy again. I hope he might turn out to be the villain or something like that later on in the season. He does show up at the end of the episode getting rescued. Hey man, this is a spoiler chat, but I thought Gavin the botanist deserved maybe a bit of a longer story arc than that, but hey man, what are you going to do? So they get the logs as evidence from Boiler's personal stuff, and it isn't as solid as Mariner might have hoped. So naturally, she does what anyone does and steals the Cerritos. And one thing this show does well, because it's supposed to be showing the other side of Starfleet's, is the two guys in the sort of booth at the space station and how they would react. It's just like two guys watching a security camera going, shit, should we call the police? And yeah, we've kind of seen it before in Star Trek, but again, it was a nice touch. And I like that Lower Decks shows us that there's a sort of hierarchy of different levels of maybe prestige within Starfleet, because Mariner keeps saying that her mum's getting a hard time because she's a California class ship captain, not, you know, captain of like a big serious sexy ship like the Enterprise. So I don't know, I liked it in this episode, but I hope they don't lean into it too heavily throughout the rest of the season. So before she gets too far, the rest of the crew put a stop to her and they realise it's not a particularly good idea. Starfleet shows up, and when they're about to get busted, Captain Freeman, who's now a free woman, shows up and saves the day. She gives a big expo dump with Tuvok explaining how she got out and how the system does work, and she should have trusted the Federation and Starfleet. But yeah, Tuvok's still a commander. That's like 35 years he's been a commander now. That's a little bit odd. Are we going to get Tim Russ in this? Maybe. So by the end of the episode, everything's back where it needs to be. All the crew are together. The ship's probably off out on some secondary mission as always. And yeah, this was a good episode, but as I said at the start, it didn't have the punch or delivery that other episodes, especially the last season premiere of Lower Decks, has had. I did think there was going to be an arc where, you know, the four of them stole the ship and maybe went on an adventure for an episode or two before they resolved the situation with Captain Freeman and all that. So I was a little bit disappointed, but Lower Decks is very quick paced, and I'm sure they're going to pick up threads from previous seasons, most likely the Packlids, because they do get mentioned in the first episode. But yeah, all in all, an enjoyable episode, but I don't think it was a great start for a season premiere. Of course, I'm going to be watching the rest of the show, and I want to know what you guys think about this as well. Are you glad to see Lower Decks back? Did you like the first episode? Did you not care, or were you like me, you thought it was a good try, but it wasn't the best? If you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe to the channel. It's only one small click for you, but it means the world to me. My name's Al, as always, thanks for watching.